I mean, it all starts with the writing, because the writing is so rich and so complex and so detailed for Tommy's character and for all of the characters. But, you know, Steve said something recently which made sense to me, and, you know, he is inevitably, I suppose, he would be classed as an anti-hero in our kind of, in the vernacular of TV shows, or, you know, the way we look at gangster shows. But Steve said something, he said, you know, he's a good man who does bad things to a good end. And that to me kind of sums up the contradiction of the character, because there are so many things about him that you could, you know, isolate and admire, then there's many things that you would be horrified by. And yet, to try and play that contradiction is brilliant, because ultimately drama is contradiction, I think. You know? I don't necessarily need, as Cillian, to agree with any character I play. That would limit the amount of characters I could play drastically.
Fair enough.
But I need to understand and comprehend. And I think if you're referring to when Tommy begins to recognize that fascism, for example, as represented by Oswald Mosley.
I was referring to the orphanage.
Oh, the orphanage. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's another example of where
Very clear, like, to use a cliche term, kind of a save the cat moment, where suddenly we see he cares very deeply about this one thing that everybody would care about.
For sure, yeah. And I don't want to give anything away about that, but yeah, that is an example. And I think it's like if you watch the whole show, you'll begin to realize that what's happening gradually is that we're beginning to see more and more of the character that existed pre-First World War, before he was so traumatized and devastated by his experiences in France, in the trenches, and we're beginning to see, I think, some of those values and things that were important to him, seeing them be kind of, you know, they were dormant for a long time, and they're now coming back to life, I think.
Yeah. Forgive me for not knowing this. Have you been executive producer since the beginning?
No, since I think series 3, was it?
Since series 3.
Yeah.
I begged him.
You begged him?
Yeah.
What was that? What was it like making that decision?
Well, you know, for me, it was very illuminating, really, because generally as an actor, you know, you turn up, you do your work as best you can, you say the lines, you go home, and then you see it a year later, or however long it takes to make the product. That's a terrible word. To make the piece of art.
And then, why did they use that take? God damn
well,
it.
no, you've totally forgotten by then. Do you know what I mean? But so this was a very interesting exercise in, you know, having to watch the edit, for example, and to be able to watch my own performance in a kind of completely objective, sober sort of way. That's been very educational for me.
Right, you can go in the edit room and you can actually sort of ask questions about your performance and your take.
I don't do that. I don't go in the edit
that.
room. I would not go in the edit room. That's a sacred place for the director and the editor, really. But when the edits of, you know, it'll go through various edits.
Sure,
each,
you get it, yeah.
Yeah, then you can talk about it. But so that's been very interesting, and all the, you know, cool stuff like special effects and grading and music and all that post-production stuff that as an actor you're never generally privy to. That's been very interesting for me.
Why did you beg him to come on as an executive producer?
Well, because he's valuable. You know, we take the role of, producers like me, longtime producers, take the role seriously. We don't believe in just giving anybody a credit just because they're, you know, married to someone, or because it's someone's manager, or there's some kind of a language quid pro quo where they have to. Because he
These
contributes.
all sound like a specific circumstances.
No.
No,
This is Hollywood, just generally. But because of the additive value of his intellect and the nature of his participation, I felt strongly that it would be helpful to the product and keep the budget, to be quite frank, in a way, and all things related to the budget. Choices had to be made exquisitely well. No room for messing about.
Right.